Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to this talk, because I know it's a really packed program today, and you've a great talk up against this one, and in fact, great talks through all the tents all day long. I'll just introduce myself and my guests here for this talk. So, my name is Suzanne Campbell. I'm a food and farming journalist. I'm from Wicklow, and I'm recording later today for RT with James Rebanks. So I'm swinging in to talk to these guys as well in this talk. And I used to produce a farming program called Ears to Ground for a long time. And I mainly report for RT Radio, and I write for a few of the papers as well on animals, livestock, kind of rural policy, and the gamut of things to do with eating and producing food. And today we have two wonderful guests to talk about, really, I suppose, producing food on farm and getting it to restaurants, getting it out to clients, that linkage between what the client wants and will pay for in terms of local food and good food, which is the key question. You know, and Chris is going to talk about that a little more. Chris is, of course, from Wine and Brine in Moira, a fantastic restaurant I've been to. It's very well known, obviously, in this part of the world. You've got a Michelin Bib Gourmand, isn't that right? Yeah. He's appeared in the Great British Menu. We'll talk about his background a little bit more in a second. He'll go back into that. And we also have Becky Cole from Broughgammon Farm, not far from here, a bit further northwest, near Bushmills, and obviously very, very well known in this part of the world and beyond for producing really excellent food, both in veg and from livestock. So they have veal, goats, cattle and pigs at any one time. So it's a very busy operation. So we're going to really dig down into that a little bit more. So Chris, you might, before I go to Becky and her slides, you might give me a little bit of background on your route into food and chefing, because you've quite a wealth of experience behind you before you even opened in Moira, isn't that right?
Yeah. So I suppose really, my background is I come from the North Coast. My mum was in hospitality. That was something in the kind of early 1980s. Whenever I was growing up, my mum kind of felt she'll get me into the restaurant environment, keep me, but before I get into any kind of mischief, just kind of keep me busy. So I kind of found that as a way for me, just kind of I got a lot of really good social skills from that. A lot of really good working with kind of older people. I got a sense of kind of working in an industry and feeling that I could add value to it and get something out of it at the same time. So it was something that really early on for me, whenever I was deciding what I was going to do after school, where I was going, it was one of the paths that kind of opened up for me. And I did that for a while, and then I decided that I met my now wife, but we met, she was at university in Corrigan, and we decided that if we really wanted to kind of make a life for each other, we would kind of move away. Obviously, my job in hospitality as a chef kind of would take me, I could kind of go anywhere.
Yeah.
So from my wife's point of view, it was about really Divina getting settled and finding something that she wanted to do. So she was university French and European studies, so very language based, so she could travel anywhere. We ended up in London. We thought we were going to be there for 2 years. We ended up being there for 20.
Wow. Where in London did you work? In different places?
Yeah, so originally I went over to work for a guy called Bruno Lube, who not many people would know, but he was the head chef at the Manoir Quatre Saisons, and
wow.
he had left there and moved into London, and he had just opened up it was in the midst of opening up a large eatery on Piccadilly. So I was one of the first team members there. I did about a year with him. Like, openings are really brutal. They're really difficult. So your burnout is really high in the restaurants whenever you're opening. So I did about a year and a half, and then I moved to Gary Rhodes in Mayfair. So I worked for Gary for 5 years, ended up leaving as his sous chef. And then I went...
That must have been a pretty, like, those were the high times at Gary Rhodes, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Gary was doing a lot of TV. Yeah. He was pushing out 3 books a year. They were all coming from the restaurant, so it was a lot of work, not just running a restaurant. But I suppose what I learned from that was kind of prioritizing and being super organized, because Gary would come in and we would have a meeting if he was in the country every Monday morning, and the itinerary was this is what we need, this is what I need, when I need it, how I need it, all of that. that. So the kitchen, running the restaurant was one part, but then organising Gary's itinerary after that and being able to
Wow.
facilitate that.
And if you are working for a chef like that, what we might call a celebrity chef, just people might want to know, how much are they across the restaurant? How much are they in the restaurant?
Gary, to be fair, was very much hands-on. If he was in the country, he was in the restaurant. He was very much, he was always the first one in. He was always,
right.
very much so. And it's something that even today in my kitchen, the boys would, I'm the guy that's opening up. I'm the guy that's in there.
Right.
This morning I'm there before they're there, kind of getting an overview of everything, making a list. Kind of, lots of stuff I picked up from Gary. Gary was super organised, so we had a meeting every morning and things like that. So we sat down, and that was part of it. And I've done that everywhere I've worked ever since. So I did that 5 years with Gary, which was amazing. And then I went to go and work for Pierre Kaufman at Le Claire.
Wow.
So I was there for 2 years. I was his sous chef there. And then Richard. So, yeah.
The wonderful Richard Corrigan.
The legend.
Yeah.
The legend himself, yeah. I ended up working for Richard for 12 years. So I oversaw Lindsay House, obviously 1 star, and then opening Bentley. So I ended up being the chef director there. So I overviewed kind of everything. So I kind of looked after a lot of stuff, kind of team management really more than anything else. Kind of going in, speaking to the head chef, seeing where everything is, making sure their GPs are where they need to be and stuff like that. And then, but still at that stage, we opened Corrigan's at Mayfair. So I went in there as the head chef, and I eventually left. I did 5 years there, and so 12 years in total with Richard.
Richard, what is he like to work with? I mean, I know Richard is passionate about Irish food, passionate about local food, properly farm food. He's also a very flamboyant character. He's a real entertainer. He's a real fly by the seat of his pants sometimes.
Oh, very much so. There's no script.
No.
Do you know what I mean? He's very, he's very much like that. He's very passionate.
Very.
He's also unbelievably knowledgeable about not just about food, but also heritage, about just about Irish food culture over the years, over the last 30, 40, 50, 60, even further back than that. Richard is really knowledgeable in that. I got a lot out of that whole experience with Richard, and I think it kind of, he's infectious. He's very infectious, you know. So yeah, I loved. I kind of call him the rock and roll years.
I'd
with Richard,
say it was,
because there was plenty of rocking and plenty of rolling with Richard for 12 years, which was amazing. I really enjoyed it, But it was time for me. I was at a point. We were at a point as a family where we needed to make big decisions. We had a young family then, and we were at a point where the girls are still in primary school, but they're going to be hitting secondary school in a year's time. If we're going to make a move, do we make it now?
So it's either stay in London for really almost the rest of your working life, or go back home.
Or come back home, yeah. And coming back there was lots of really, really positive stuff for me coming back. I knew that the produce was here. So from a chef point of view, I spent 12 years in London, or that 12 years with Richard, honing and getting a lot of really, really good supplier base from all over the UK, whether it be Gusanara, the Gusanara duck up with Reggie Johnson and the family, or by buying off day boats in St Ives, and we'd have a lot of local. We had growers for us as well. So even living in working in London, I still had that sense of connection with the supplier, So when I came back, I felt that was the first thing to do. So when I came back here, I went to a lot of game fairs, went to a lot of food fairs, kind of connected with a lot of people, tried to build that kind of rapport. So knowing that that it's really important to have that relationship with the supplier. So if the supplier for me, if the produce that they're delivering, I just want to nurture it and look after it and give it the best and try and do the best with that product without overcomplicating it. So yeah, that's kind of where it stemmed for us at Wine and Brine, and that's kind of our ethos ever since.
So you've been open how long then in Wine and Brine?
We're 10 years this year.
Very good.
Yeah. So yeah, brilliant. Love it. And also, a thing was really important for us is moving back to Northern Ireland was about being part of a community was really important to me. I lived and worked in London for 20 years. I had no aspirations to work in a city. Everybody was in Belfast. They say, "Oh, are you coming to Belfast?" I was like, I have no intention of coming to Belfast. I want to be somewhere where, one, the girls go to school, two, we can kind of pick them up from school. We're going to be working in the same area. So that was a really important part for us.
Yeah. Very much so. Okay. I'll give your mic over to Becky. Thanks for that introduction. So, Becky, you're going to tell us, and you can use your slides if you want. I know you have some prepared. Very different situation to Chris. You're on the food producer side. You have a farm very well known called Broughgammon. So tell us about the origins of the farm and go back a little bit before we go into what your day-to-day is like now.
Definitely. Well, Chris, I'm definitely going to be trying to get that army into a restaurant now. I feel like, why have I not tried this before? So yeah, we're Broughgammon Farm. We're 50 acres, beautiful regenerative farm, right up by the coast, battered by the wind. Quite a boggy old farm, not going to lie, but we've done a lot with it. Me, my husband Charlie, we're the main ones that run it. Hell of a lot of work, I have to say. I always thought that I'd end up in fashion, not going to lie. That was my dream in life. I actually went to NCAD, which is the National Art College.
In Dublin.
Yeah. Lived a good life, burnt the candle at both ends, I can tell you that. Learned how to party there. And I really thought I was going to end up in fashion. I did fashion design. That was my dream. And then I started to get so disillusioned with the whole fashion industry, realized that this is not the answer. And my dad's actually an environmental scientist, so I always grew up with this kind of awareness that, shit was going to hit the fan and the environment needed support. So that was always at the back of my mind, even though I tried to fight against it and go into the fashion industry. And eventually it kind of caught up with me. I was working at Dubarry Boots, which is a fancy welly boot company. And that was great fun, going to all the game fairs and horse shows. I absolutely love horses as well, so that was an amazing job for me. And randomly met Charlie, and it was love at first sight, as they say. And literally before I knew it, I was there feeding goats and, butchering and going to markets. And I was like, this is actually a great life. And, we just cracked on with it, and I just put the fashion aside and just got my hands dirty.
Was he already farming at that stage?
Yeah, so Charlie studied agriculture at Siren. He came back, and his parents had bought this 50 acres really to live the good life. His dad had been in the military and the army and been traveling all around the world, Germany, Italy, Saudi Arabia, which is actually where a lot of his knowledge of food came from, because they had such a good sort of diverse cultural idea of different types of food. And yeah, basically this 50 acres was bought because Millie grew up in Bushmills. She absolutely wanted to go back home at the end of this crazy life she was living. So they bought the 50 acres, and then Charlie was trying to get a job in agriculture. Turned out it was pretty hard. And he saw the 50 acres there and was like, right, I'm going to start farming. And I think it probably wasn't quite what Millie and Robin had in mind when they bought their retirement 50 acres, because before they knew it, Millie was in the butchery, butchering for all the markets. Robin was there sort of feeding the animals. And before we knew it, we had this business that was just taking off.
When was that? When did you kill and sell the first animals? Was it kind of 10 years ago, 15 or more?
It was just before Charlie and I met. I think that sort of started to take off. So probably 16 years ago.
Yeah.
We actually started with just a caravan, and we had the billy goats. The billy goats, the idea of that came from, they were free. They were free, and it was basically this broken system, food system, where in the dairies, the male goats are put down at birth because they're no use. No one wants to eat the goat meat, and they cost to keep them on at the farm. So the farmers were just, euthanizing them at birth. And when Charlie found out that, and in fairness, he had looked into so many different avenues for the farm. We looked into the wild boar and all sorts of things. But when he saw this, he was like, okay, no, this is a crazy story. This is such a waste.
Yeah.
It's a broken system. No, we have to do something about that. So we got the goats. We had no barns at this stage. So we had a caravan. I came along on the scene at this point. We were rearing the goats in the caravan by hand, which I don't recommend. It was a hard way to get started.
I can't imagine you coming from fashion, living in a caravan, rearing goats. It sounds like hell on earth.
Do you know, actually, a lot of my friends are like, Becky, are you okay? What's happened to you? I mean, love is a strong thing. That's all I can say.
You must have been.
I know. What was I thinking? Anyway, we were in the caravan feeding the goats. We thought that we had a restaurant lined up actually to buy the goats.
Yeah.
turns out they changed their mind, and we were left with all these billy goats that had come into, good slaughter age, 6 to 8 months, and, cost us a hell of a lot of money, to be honest, to hand rear. And we had nowhere to sell them.
Oh,
so
gosh.
at that point, we were like, oh, God. So we butchered them, made them into billy burgers. I'm sure maybe some of you have had the billy burgers or heard about the billy burgers, because they're pretty good. And we took them down to the Lammas Fair, which is big fair in Ballycastle. And there's a pub there called Tessie's, and we had a stall in Tessie's in the corner, completely ignored by everybody. Everyone was like, what are you doing? Goat burgers? That is absolutely disgusting. The night wore on, people got progressively more drunk. The dare started. Some man trips over to us, bleary-eyed.
I love it.
Give us a goat burger. Ate the burger, and then he was like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And really, that was the start of our business, because for us, a huge part of our business is direct to customer.
Yeah.
We're an artisan business, which means our profit margin is low. It just is when you were doing things on the level that we are, which is very environmental, very sustainable. There's not an inch of greenwashing with us. The margin isn't fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
very
just,
small.
sadly, it's just the way it is. So direct to customer was a good one, but that's how we actually stumbled into it. It was
That
completely
is
by
brilliant. And kind of having that local buy-in is key. And I bet what you're kind of saying is if we could sell it in Ballycastle, we could kind of sell it everywhere, because obviously goat meat is untraditional to many of us. I mean, I think it's absolutely amazing. And as you know, it feeds most of the world, south of Europe, most of Africa and the Middle East, and so much of the cooking of the Levant and even further is based around goat meat. It's amazing. But making that cultural transition to get Irish fellas and Irish women to eat it is a jump. Yeah. And did that kind of make you think we can do this?
Yeah, I mean, at that point then, we saw there was a demand, and, we didn't want to start farming anytime soon, so we just kept going. We got a street food trailer, went down to all the markets at Ballycastle, went anywhere that would take us. We even went down and cooked at Ballymaloo, which was a great experience. We just said yes to everything. At that point, this was pre-children, so we were a little bit more mobile. And it was messy, chaotic. And then every bit of money that we earned, we just pushed back into the farm, got ourselves some barns, which made life a lot easier. Well, there was a polytunnel in between the caravan and the barn, so we ended up rearing the goats in the polytunnel for a while. That was bad, because they eat plastic. But eventually that blew down, and then we got the barns. After that, then we ended up going to free-range Rose Veal. Very, very similar story with that. Male calves don't really beef up very well, so they were going for, pretty cheap.
Are they from the dairy industry, I suppose?
Also from the dairy as well. So it was a very, very similar story. Actually, much harder to sell with the Rose Veal, because people were like, veal, baby calves. And we're like, no, they're grass-fed. We have to wean them off the milk. That's why they're in the
and they're older as well. Are they what?
They're big. They're 6 to 8 months, which sounds like a baby. It's just not. It's like a teenage bull with the horn. It's getting frisky, and it's time for it to go. So it's when I start getting scared of them. I know the time to go. So we did that, and then we're still doing goats and veal, and then we moved into the pigs. We do sheep, we do chicken eggs, and amongst all that, we also set up a farm shop and cafe, which we run 3 days a week.
Wow.
And that's great, because we also make a lot of condiments and things like that for our street food trailers. And we're actually catering here today, and if you buy something from us, you'll know, the ketchup's homemade. We have our own salads, we make our own pickles. Everything's homemade from the farm.
And who makes, for example, that condiment side of it? Because that's quite a lot of labour.
We do have a member of staff in the cafe.
Yeah.
So she does, Paddy's absolutely brilliant. She does a lot of that for us now, which is a great help.
Yeah.
We were doing that initially ourselves for a long time though.
Wow. Wow, I'm kind of blown over with the amount of stuff you have going on and the amount of labour and skills involved. Because obviously, and anyone here who raises livestock or who farms or even who grows veg, you'll have crops that just do not work out. You'll have disease, you'll have animal lines maybe that you're carrying that you just can't sell. So, it's obviously been learning all the way along what's going to work.
Definitely, and things are always shifting on a farm. For us, even with the goats, we're finding it harder to get hold of the goats now. Some of the farms that were supplying us have gone under. They're retired and things like that, and things shift. So that's why we got into the sheep. We're always in that constant thing of diversifying out, trying something new, not sitting on our laurels anyway. And I think that's what a lot of farms are now doing, where it's like you've just got your fingers in so many pies. It does feel a little bit chaotic and mad at times, but I can't see any other way of making it work, especially when you've got 50 acres to work with. I mean, it's such a small amount of land. You can't really do anything intensively. And also with our kind of ethos of being environmental and sustainable, you know, the intensive farming really wasn't going to be something that we were going to do anyway. So, so that's where we're at. The veg comes in because I think about 8 years ago, we started to do the veg. We have 2 polytunnels and 2 acres, so it's quite small. There's a nice picture of it there on the screen. I think we can see my lovely edible flowers.
Yeah, nice
great.
kale.
Yeah, looks good. We started doing that because initially it was a brassica break for the farm. If you have grass year after year after year, eventually you get fungal issues, you get disease. So initially we're like, right, let's put in a brassica break and we'll rotate this around the farm, you know, giving the land a bit of a break. Once we were done with the veg, we were then putting in a species-rich grassland kind of mix into the ground. So we were reseeding it with something which was going to be healthier for the animals, as opposed to just, you know, that kind of monoculture of just one variety of grass, which obviously is not good for anything. So we were using it as a brassica break, and we were rotating the veg around the field, which was an interesting one. I'm not gonna lie. Like, some years was amazing. Like, this field here was one of my favorites. It was absolutely beautiful. The kale was like, you know, really up to my head almost. It was amazing. And then some years, you know, I'd be saying to Charlie, I don't think we should do the brassica break in that field, but he's very stubborn. So he was like, oh, we're going to put it in. Sure enough, you know, piddling carrots, and that wasn't great. So, but we were determined to do this brassica break. And then now we're at the point 8 years in, and we've learned a lot through those 8 years, where we've now got our final fields that we're sticking in. That's actually our agroforestry field. We have, I suppose it's probably about 4 acres of agroforestry, which we planted around again maybe 8 years ago. And in that field, we have our veg, and that's where we're going to stick it now for a while. Like I said, initially it was a brassica break, and it's still serving that function to a certain degree, but it's also providing us with food. You know, it's providing us with the stuff that we need. We are our number one supplier. We do supply to restaurants, chefs as well. But we need that veg to keep our business going. So it's fantastic in that way.
And where does the veg sell? In the shop?
Yeah, so we have our farm shop. So we sell direct to customer. We also sell to local businesses like Ursa Minor, with Kira Hoskell. She buys, and she does lots of supper clubs and things like that as well, which is great. Minnie Magdin. Maybe the smaller scale sort of places, but they've been very good to us, and they'll sort of take whatever we have. So that's been good.
So is most of your business, because we'll come to you now, Chris, about the restaurant side, is most of your business selling to individuals who come to the farm shop or online, rather than like restaurants or food entities, food service?
It's a kind of a mixture of both, to be honest. Like with the vegetables, each week I would shift actually quite a lot to Ursa Minor, and, you know, occasionally some other people as well. And then, like I said, we sell in the cafe and also process a lot of it into condiments, either to sell in the shop. So, like, you know, we'll sell our own brand chutney. We sell our own ketchup. Obviously, we've got lots of dishes in the farm shop as well, all of our own vegetables. And then Charlie's down at Temple Bar every Saturday with his street food trailer. So
of course,
he's supplying to that as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a combination. And then people come up with the veg as well, yeah.
Okay. Very good. We've a great idea of what you do. Chris, I want to go back to you now. How much of what you buy would be local? And I suppose the second question is, it's that key thing of how much will the customer pay? Because obviously you can get everything off the back of a Palace food truck and no one will know the difference. In a lot of food eateries, you know, you go to, you won't have any source labelled on the menu, and a lot of customers really wouldn't care or really wouldn't be willing to pay for that difference. So your customer base obviously is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously us kind of parachuting into Moira 10 years ago or 11 years ago now, nobody really knowing what we were about. It gave us a really good way of just kind of dictating what our kind of USP was going to be, and as I said earlier, coming back from London, I had gained a lot of really good supplier networking in the UK. Some of which I actually tried to tap into when I was first here, even though I had made a lot of journeys to food fairs and stuff like that. So I would say we probably 90% of what we produce at the restaurant is either locally sourced or is from Northern Ireland or from the south. So there's a lot, things like citrus and things like that we have to purchase, but everything else. What I found with us now is that we have our menus are dictated by the grower.
By the seasonal, what's coming.
By the seasonal and by the grower and by what, like I use a guy, David Mead, who used to be my head chef and then went out and has started going on that kind of no digging farming. So he's producing for us and we're probably taking about 70% of what he produces.
Wow.
And he'll come to me and say, listen, Chris, I need to get the kohlrabies out. I want to put some. And I say, listen, send them down to us. We'll use them. We'll get them on the menu. We'll get them on lunch. And he's not the only one. We have Conway Farm as well. Philip at Conway Farm, we use them as well. We use CV Farm for poultry.
Are they all around your neck of the woods?
Well, CV Farm they also have a farm up on the north coast as well. So they do pork, they do chicken. So they do a variety of stuff as well. So we have lots of people like that we use. From a fishing point of view, we use Greencastle. So we buy off day boats there, and it'll come up to us on a regular basis. So we do a lot of behind the scenes stuff to kind of produce, and it's just good housekeeping, because if you're going straight to source, then you're cutting out. You're cutting out that middle person who's going to be holding that stock and then sending it out to you. So for us, as I'm acutely aware that there is a minimum spend in Northern Ireland. People are willing to, when they're going out to eat, there's a kind of minimum spend that they kind of sit on, and there's a threshold as a restaurant. You're kind of always walking this line. Obviously, when I look at I don't want to get into the whole politics of it, but we pay 20% VAT up here at the moment in the south.
Gosh, that's high.
In the south, it's 13, but it's going to go to 9 by the looks of it.
We're trying to get it down to 9
it's 9 to 9. Yeah. So when you think about bringing hospitality or bringing people coming out, from a restaurant point of view, we have to be really clever about how we use the produce, and use as much of it as we possibly can. So yeah, it's for me, it's just good housekeeping. It's something that.
So in a way, what I'm getting from what you're saying is it can be cost effective in that while it is local, and the perception might be, oh, that's going to be more expensive because it's farmed on a small market garden kind of system. It's not coming from a mass produced kind of entity. But because there's no middleman, there's no distributor, and because you're using more of the crop, it might be actually cheaper.
Yeah, the two people, mainly the two people that we use, Philip and Dave, we've had really good relationships with. So, at the end of the day, there has to be there's a cost, and Dave's not doing it. He needs to make a living out of it as well, and so does Philip. And I'm consciously aware of that. So that at the end of the day, and Dave comes to me and he says, "Listen, Chris, this is what it's going to cost." I'm not going to sit and barter with him, because I know he's coming with the best possible price, because he knows we're going to take 80%, 70 or 80% of what he does. So it's in his interest to kind of be price conscious as well. So it's about being fair. It's about making sure that Dave is getting what he needs out of it. So whenever we're preparing all his produce, we keep all of the waste. It goes back into his compost. So he'll pick that up every week. So all of the kale stalks, everything that comes from him, we keep it, and then he takes it back and he turns it into his compost. So we try and help him as much as we can, be efficient. It's about keeping the price down for customers. It's about not putting ourselves to a threshold where we're seen as a special occasion restaurant. We want to be a neighbourhood restaurant, kind of a regular fixture on people's absolutely. Diary. I mean, for some people we are that special place, but special occasion restaurant, but it wouldn't be, that wouldn't function as a business if that's what we were.
No.
Definitely not. No.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask both of you. Obviously, we're in a period where two things have really happened since the pandemic. So farm inputs costs and energy costs have skyrocketed. So for producers, whether it's your diesel, bringing your animals to be killed, you go up to Donegal, and then for you, your menu, we know beef has got a lot more expensive. Dairy through the board, I think. I was looking at the price of like a a kilo of butter since the pandemic, like your Dairy Gold, 600 grams now is what, €6 or €8 or pounds, or it's absolutely astronomical.
I think I pay over 200. I think I pay over £200 now for 25 kilo of butter. It's unbelievable.
And you cannot cook without that.
No, you can't. You can't cook with it. We actually make our own butter now at the restaurant as a direct result of that.
No way.
Yeah, we do. So we make our own butter at the restaurant.
As a kind of an enterprise to save costs.
To save costs, but it's also it's a nice process for the kitchen to go through to make that. So it's our cultured butter, so that then without going down a rabbit hole, so things like on a Sunday, whenever we serve bread, we make our own sourdoughs, obviously, and stuff like that. But on a Sunday night, we're closed for 3 days, so we make a kind of a yeast bath that all the week's bread goes into. So we make our own Marmite. So then we turn that and we add that into our butter. So again, it's just another part of trying to be clever, trying to use everything up. That kind of pulp then that we come back to on a Wednesday when we drain it, the liquid gets reduced into a Marmite, and we use it in our butter. The actual paste that's there, we add flour to it, and we turn that into a cracker mix. So that's all our seeded crackers that go onto our cheese board and stuff. So we it's just about being really clever and about trying to, that takes manpower as well.
It does.
And there's a skill set to that. But that's one of the reasons why young chefs come to us. Because they're not necessarily getting those skills somewhere else.
No.
Again, it's about us trying to cut costs and find a way of cutting costs, but adding a kind of USB to what we do.
Yes.
So it's our own culture butter, and if we want to stick a spoonful of our Marmite in there one day, we can do that.
Yeah.
We make a mushroom caramel, and we stick a spoon of that into and we make a mushroom caramel butter. So it gives us the versatility to do a lot of stuff. The operational costs now, from a fuel point of view, from all
energy,
and energy and all of that.
Gas.
I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. The margins. I feel the restaurants now are running to stand still.
I would think that as well. And I know, because I cover a lot down in the south, obviously, but it would be the same in the north. You're looking at a lot of closures. You're looking at a lot of people kind of in peril, whether they'll stay open or not. Are your customers with you seeing the value that is being added by your skill set, your kitchen, your knowledge of food, your those add-ons that you're doing? Are they staying with you even as prices go up a little bit? Obviously, you're trying to keep it affordable.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel very blessed that we have a really, really loyal customer base that come to us on a regular basis. And when I say regular, London regular customer would be once a month. I see some of my customers twice a week, and we're open from Thursday till Sunday. So I see. And we're quite a big space as well. We can seat 90 people at once. So, it's not great to walk into a restaurant, there's only 20 people in it. You kind of go, there's no atmosphere here. So it's important that we're busy as well. So we have to see that we're affordable. So that kind of £30 3-course lunch menu that changes every week. There's 9 changes on that menu every week. It means that you can come to us on a regular basis and get something different all the time. It'll be seasonally driven and kind of sustainably sourced, because they know that that's what we're about. It's taken a while to get like that. Social media is a big part of that. Our social media platform, Wine and Brine on our Instagram and stuff like that. I think that's a really important part of the business model now. Not just necessarily, I'd say Broughgammon Farm as well, using your social media to kind of get that story out there, get people knowing what your philosophy is, what the ethos is, all of that. I think that's a really important part of what we do. Dave, who's only just started in his farming about a year and a half ago, as soon as he started producing them, we were taking off, and we were straight onto our social media, and he picked up maybe 4 or 5 customers straight away off the back of that. And I think that's something that's. I'm not brilliant at it. I'll be honest. My wife does most of that. She's really good at that. I'm not.
You can't be brilliant at everything.
Well, she'd argue I'm not pretty good at anything. But anyway, it's an important part. It's an important tool now.
Really important.
It's a really important
some people
tool.
just aren't good at it. When I kind of say to people in food businesses, just give it to your niece then, or whoever's a chef. There'll be someone in your place that loves taking pictures.
Yeah.
loves putting up captions. Off you go. You know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we have another young guy who works with us now, a young chef, and that's what I do. I just say to him, look, in the morning, just you can take pictures of whatever you want, just tag Wine and Brine in.
Yeah.
As long as you tag Wine and Brine in, then we can throw it on our story, we can throw it on a post. And that's creating a little profile for him as well. And
Yes,
stuff like that,
yes.
which is kind of getting him out there a wee bit, which is great as well. So I think it's a really important tool, and it can be overlooked sometimes, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But from a chefing point of view, because chefs are like, I say this, we're like magpies. Everybody kind of looks at what everybody else is doing and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, chefs are looking at what we do at Wine and Brine because our kind of menu is quite extensive and it's very seasonally driven. So lots of young chefs are looking at what we do, and then that kind of, we're putting stuff on our feed that's like in relation to farming, in relation to Conway Farmer, etc. Then they'll suddenly go, do you know what? I need to contact these people. You know.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to kind of get that and help suppliers out there as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. You know.
I want to ask you the two questions. So go back on, because I want to come to your social, which is a very important thing, your socials feeds. The cost space, how are you coping with that? Because since the pandemic, it looked like so good in the pandemic because everyone was eating more locally. There was a lot of pop-ups. There was a lot of kind of inventive, progressive stuff. And then suddenly this cost thing rolled through in energy and gas, and that's affected the dairy is a stunning one, the acceleration of dairy costs. So how are you dealing with that from your customers? Are you finding they have less money, or they're still with you and going, I want to pay for that quality?
I think that, yes, obviously there are a lot of problems, but people always want good food. You know, I think people understand more than ever, I would say now, how much health and food is completely intertwined. And, you know, yes, it can feel like a luxury spending more on food, but at the same time, the payback in your health years to come. So I would say, like, a lot of our customers, they are so clued on to the importance of eating food which isn't full of antibiotics or sprayed, that, you know, we haven't really lost them.
Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah, they've stuck with us. Like Chris said, you know, we're on social media a lot. We're very transparent. We also have this farm shop and cafe, which is open 3 days a week. And during that time, we let people walk around the entire farm. They go see the animals.
Oh, fantastic.
And, you know, I think that's all helped us in a way.
Yes,
We've never said, oh, we're perfect. We're the best regenerative farm ever. Because that does not exist. I mean, always wary of the person that says that, because I would say regenerative is really a journey. Not necessarily an endpoint. That sounds quite cheesy, actually. I said that, but you know, it really is. Like, you can't just go straight into a regenerative system. It takes absolute years to get there.
And because every land is different. You know what some fella does here, and that works that way, and they go down one avenue, you go, oh, I can replicate that. Every land is different. The soil type is different. Your weather conditions, your hours of labour and skill set that's available to.
This is it. Like, you can't have that picture perfect farm.
No.
Certainly for us, like, you know, growing grain is just not something that's going to work for us. Our land isn't right. The soil isn't right. So even though that is such a part of the regenerative story, you know, having your grain, for us, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think, it's taking your customer along and communicating with them, being very transparent. And I think that breeds trust. And then once you've got the trust in that, they're going to keep coming back for more. And I think for us as well, you know, you drive down the lane to the farm shop, you're actually seeing where the vegetables are growing. And you know, and also the taste is so different.
That's it. We haven't even talked about that, because we might go, oh, it's quality, it's local, it's whatever, but it's going to taste better. And that's what people come back.
Unbelievable. Like, the difference now, like, we grow our own vegetables, but obviously with the meat and everything, it's like, you just can't. Like, if I buy kale from the supermarket, it's so disgusting. Like, it's like crumbs of little horrible crumbs. And then you get like this amazing leaf of like Cavolo kale, and it's just so alive and incredible, and just, you can see the nutrients in it. Now, that is veg grown on good soil. I mean, that's what we do. You know, we mob graze, we do all the right things, and as a result, you know, the vegetables are alive when you pick them. They keep that sort of vibrancy for
a much longer time.
Yeah, exactly. You're not having to like flush it with gas and things like that to kind of keep the freshness. And I think people, you know, they come back. We're always very careful to try and keep things affordable as well, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I think people know the difference.
They do. Okay. We might open it up to questions at this point. Would any of you like to ask a question? They're all very quiet.
Go for it.
I have a question for Chris.
Yeah, shout up.
From a chef's perspective, and particularly for younger chefs, when you're processing kilos and kilos of vegetables and you're
Yeah.
And especially when you're working with good produce, what advice do you have, or is there any like rituals or any kind of advice that you've given your young chefs for how you stop viewing your food and things that you're working with as a commodity?
Yeah.
We're seeing like work that Becky and team are doing,
Mm-hmm.
that, like, and it's clearly not a commodity, it's a gift, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, working restaurants, and you get stuff that is just like bags and bags and bags of stuff, and it is a commodity, but
Yeah.
your problem is,
Yeah.
how do you stop your chefs from viewing it like that?
I think it's really interesting, a really good question actually, because when I go back to my early days in London, when I first became a young chef, I was kind of, I was looking at the clock in the morning going, where's my meat delivery? Where's my veg delivery? Didn't really care where it was coming from. It was more important that I had it so I could get it prepped and get it on and be using it. So I wasn't really concerned about where it was coming from. It's only then as I've kind of grown through my career and working with people that then you start to appreciate where the supplier base and that whole food chain. I personally take our guys out to the farm. So
That's a great idea.
So we go up to, for instance, Dave, who's got his farm, he's got his couple of fields where he's growing. I head out there with the guys on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and we'll go and pick there. We'll go so they kind of understand where it's coming from. We do the same with Conway Farm, where we'll go down there on a regular basis. Goodberry Farm, Goodberry Farm strawberries and kind of berries, we'll do exactly the same there, so that they understand where it's coming from. So it's not just, yes, they need to prepare and they need to go, but they have when they've been there, they have a different
They treat it with more care, maybe.
Absolutely. And a lot of stuff we get foraged as well. Like this week, I probably got about 15 to 20 kilo of damsons that have just come through the front door. So we're the guys are standing stoning them last night, and they're going, oh my
I bet they love that.
but when we turn it into a condiment, we turn it into
Yeah, it's fairly cool. Yeah.
crab apples as well and stuff like that. So I think it's a really important. I feel that I have a responsibility now to kind of, when the guys or young people come to us, that we show them where the food's coming from, and why we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it, and that whole connection. And hopefully, when they leave us and they move on to the next restaurant or the next section, they'll take some of that with them, and hopefully over a period of time that'll grow into a kind of movement of young chefs. Like, seasonality is such an important part of what my job is, and I've learned that really early on. But there's lots of young chefs that don't, if they want to have asparagus on the menu, they've no thought process of, let's just order asparagus. Whereas we only use Conway Farm asparagus, and he has it for about 6 or 7 weeks, and once it's gone, and we won't see it until next year again. And I love that fact. I love the fact that we won't have it till next year. That's what makes it really special. Do you know what I mean? But we can multiply that by so many courgette flowers right now. We're just coming to the end of them, and we still have them on the menu, and it's great. But once they're gone, that's it. That's it till next year again. And I love that. I really love. And it's kind of self-policing as well. It makes you think about your food. It makes you think as a chef, like, right. This is the last week we're going to probably have courgette flour, so we need to be thinking about the menu. What's that going to change to?
Yeah. And I think people are getting into that seasonally. I mean, I know we write about it endlessly. It's talked about endlessly, but I think people are finally getting it. I think it's taken a long time to say maybe strawberries aren't great in December because they're flown from God knows where. Maybe fruits eaten seasonally are better. I think people are grabbing onto that. Not every consumer, but a lot of them.
Not everybody, yeah. Where we're at, in Moira, there's a really big food agriculture there. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of people know their food. When we arrived there and we opened up, I was, very quickly, I knew that people knew about the food. So you can't. There's no point. You can't blag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to know. You need to put the work in, and you need to find. Because they're going to ask you the questions. And they want to know.
But that's the kind of audience you want. That's
absolutely. I love it.
You want. Yeah.
I genuinely love it. For me, it's. I think me and Becky were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about things that are really, things that you see which are really important as a restaurant. And people think accolades like Michelin bib and top 100 restaurants in the UK and blah blah, and that's all amazing stuff. But the most important thing really is the customer base
Yeah.
and them coming. That to me is the biggest success of a restaurant,
Yeah.
or certainly for me in Wine and Brine.
Yeah.
Is that kind of loyal customer base of people coming back because
Yeah.
they believe in what we do.
Yeah.
And so when they have their beauty of bath apples that are on their on their trees in their orchard, and all the damsons that are coming, and they feel like, where am I going to put them? Yeah, I'll make some jams myself, but where can I put this excess? They'll bring it to Wine and Brine because they feel part
That's
of the
cool,
they feel part of that journey.
Yeah.
And it's a really important
Yeah.
thing for me. It's the single biggest thing that I'm proud of, regardless of anything else that the success that the restaurants had.
Yeah.
That whole, to me, is cements our place in the local community as their local restaurant.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just going to have a question here from this lady. Yeah. Yeah.
Or do you have bees?
We do have bees. We have Irish black bees, and the Irish black bee group are the ones that actually manage our hives, which is very handy. So I have to admit, I'm not a beekeeper myself.
And they are the most kind of the one we need to look after
Yes.
the most, because they're the one that's declining
Yes,
the most.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're the
Yeah.
native bee. Yeah,
Yeah.
as you probably know. Yeah.
They manage your hives, and then do you have the honey yourself?
Yes, they give us some of the honey as well, yeah, which we sell in the shop.
That's a good system. So yeah, there are operators that kind of are experts in hives. I know down in Wicklow there's fellas that do it, and they run the hives on Powerscourt Estate. They run hives in different places. They process the honey, and then they give a certain amount back to the landowners. So that probably takes the labour out of it for you guys.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, we've got our fingers in a lot of pies, so beekeeping is just not one I want to do right now. But we wanted to have bees on the farm as part of the story and everything, and yeah, it's worked out really well. And they're actually quite often they are looking for places to put hives. So if you have the space,
Yeah.
get in
Yeah.
contact with these places.
Yeah.
Irish Black Bee Group, but even if you just look up beekeepers, Northern Ireland, they're always looking for fresh places.
I see you here, but I'm just going to go one behind you. Lady who has the mic now. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. It's a great presentation from both of you. I was just wondering, we're finding as growers that restaurants basically, I mean, if I go in and I offer potatoes, they're not willing to wash the potatoes. The processing, they're willing to take maybe some salad leaf or something as a tokenery thing and be able to kind of market that on their menus. But for a grower, it's almost not worth my while kind of really engaging with the restaurant because you're unique. But if, to take a genuine, decent order from me, they're not willing to kind of scrub the potatoes, peel the carrots, process the vegetables within the restaurant.
How do you get around that, Chris? Yeah.
I know exactly where you're coming from for this, because I've seen it even with Dave, who supplies to us. His frustration is that he's going into places and the initial perception, the initial feedback is that we want to be part of it, but when I suppose. Then over a small period of time, the chefs are moaning, "Oh, we have to clean this, we have to do that, we have to do that," and that's. I think there's always going to be a little bit of that because those businesses are not run and owned by chefs. The chefs are there working as an employee, and they're not willing unless you've got somebody that actually genuinely cares. I think what Dave has done as initiative is to get these guys out into the field and bring them up before at a really early stage whenever he's supplying them, and get them to see where he's coming from and what he's trying to achieve.
Does that require them, Chris, though, to be on that philosophy on board with you? Do you know that way? Like they kind of need to be that way of thinking, don't they? Those restaurants.
Yeah, they do, and because as Becky was saying earlier, the flavour of the produce is just absolutely immense. So you can't sit there and when they taste it, they go, "Yeah, this is absolutely amazing." But there is a work element to that, and I think that's something that collectively we have to work together on. And it's just finding those relationships and maybe as a producer, maybe going that extra yard and getting them out to where your farm is or where you're growing and get them enthusiastic about it and stuff like that. And it's easier said than done. I know that. because I'm chef, obviously my business is chef driven. I make sure that I still pick the guys up in my car and I put the effort in for them to say, look, we're going out there today. You're going to go and
You're
see
kind
this.
of motivating it, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm dictating that by saying, look, and it's during their working hours as well. So I'm not saying, on a Monday when you're off, I'm bringing it. No, on a Wednesday morning when we're in on a prep day, I'll say, listen, guys, at 10 o'clock, we're jumping out of here and we're going to go for 2.5 hours. So just make sure your prep list is where it needs to be, so that we can go and do this, because I think it's important. It's important for them to see that and go out. So I think it is a process and it's a journey, and it's and there'll be lots that will fall to the wayside. And I think it's just a byproduct of it's education. It's just educating the chefs and going, look, eat the salad, look, take the feedback from your customers that are saying, oh my God, this produce is amazing. And then you kind of think, well, maybe this is worth putting the effort into,
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Chris. Do you have contracts with your growers?
Yeah, so we do growing calendars with both guys, with Philip and with Dave. So Dave will sit down with us early on in the year, and he'll talk about what he grew last year and where he sees which part of the fields that he's going to be going into this year, and what we want. And I'll kind of say to him, oh, listen, can we get can we grow more pumpkins, or can we do the Crown Prince pumpkin? Could you do more of that this year, because that flies out whenever we have it on the menu. So he'll sit down, we'll do a growing calendar. Same with Philip. So that then, I suppose what they do is then he'll go away and go, well, Chris has said that they're going to take that. So he knows that when he's going to be planting, he's got that food security, which is really important for him as a small grower. Philip's probably slightly larger, but even still, we still have that connection with him. So we sit down with Philip every year and say, listen, where's your head at? What do you want to grow? And then we know. So it kind of during that course of the year, it's kind of self-policing, so that we're kind of looking at Philip's coming to us or Dave's coming to us and they listen, don't forget about that's coming up, and and that's
And I think that's it. I think it's very easy to sort of ad-lib supply someone, but you can actually get yourself in quite a bad situation that way, because they start treating you a little bit like, oh, I'll take that, won't take that. And actually, before you know it, you're growing a lot and not shifting a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think what's interesting with Chris is that idea that, you're sitting down with that growing calendar. It's a professional relationship. And I think you're in a safer situation then when right, I've grown this for you. There is some sense of...
But you have a written contract with them?
No, it's not written.
Okay.
No, it's not written. And I suppose you could go down that route. And I suppose if it was larger scale, then maybe that might be a scenario that you would go. But I think it goes back to just that connection. These people, that we have a connection with, that relationship, that trust is there. The last thing I want is Dave to come back to me this year and say, listen, last year you said to me blah blah blah, and you didn't follow through. That would embarrass me. Yeah. So I'd be, I'm saying to him, listen, where are we for this year? What's your thought process? And also he has a very clear vision of what he wants to do and where he's. I'm almost led by him, if I'm being honest.
I was going to say, does he ever come to you and say, I want to grow this, would you take it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of led by him. Do you know what I mean? So I love that, because one, I trust him. Two, I respect him. And three, because he was a chef, he understands. He understands the process, and he understands he sees it from both sides of the fence. So I think it's a very unique way for that's the relationship that I have with him, and I think it really works. And with Philip as well. Philip is also in the food industry as well. He works for Avondale, and he does the farming is a kind of side project for him and his wife, is where they live. So he also is very acutely aware. He's an understanding of the industry from not just a farming background, but from a supplier base and from a chefing point of view.
I'm just going to go to first of all the lady behind you. Yeah, go ahead. No, it's working away, yeah.
Running out of time, but I was just curious to know, in terms of both your businesses, how you manage waste. I know you have kind of touched on it to some degree.
Waste for you? You compost everything probably?
Well, we have pigs as well, so the pigs eat all the old vegetables. We actually use them as our shallow plough. So once we're done, they'll come in and they'll eat all the old veg, and they shallow plough, so then we can reseed without releasing too much carbon. So that's part of that. We also obviously have compost. And then from like a food business perspective, very much we're all about nose to tail, no waste. I mean, the whole sort of ethos of our business was no waste in terms of the dairies. So, we chutney, pickles. We have our own supper club every month as well, so we're cooking up as much as we can, using interesting things, the tops of the beetroots, pickling the stalks, really being as inventive as we can with everything. So yeah, nothing goes to waste. And then also from like some of the people that we supply, they're very similar. That's what we look for from a supplier, is someone who gets excited with the turnip, will use the tops, knows these things, and is excited by that kind of no waste kind of ethos.
Yeah, I think we're very similar to that as well from a kitchen point of view. Giving the kind of financial commitments that you have in relation to the VAT and the running costs of a restaurant. The minimum wage has gone up again last year, and which is all really important stuff, because people have to live, people have to work. But for us to run efficiently, we need to be using up as much as we possibly can. So we use, going back to things like making our own Marmite from all the stale bread at the weekend, making our own butter. We do all our own chutneys. We don't buy anything like that, and we make all our own chutneys. We got a load of crab apples this week, so we make crab apple jelly. Loads of damsons this week, so we're just using all of that up. All the stones, we'll use those stones. We'll infuse the stones of the damsons, and we'll make a syrup from that then we'll use later on down the line, turn it into sorbet. So we're constantly trying to see how we can use things up. I think it's just I don't know, having worked with Richard for 12 years, that's Richard.
Yeah.
Richard has always had that kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
He's a farmer himself. He grew up around farms. Even living and working in London, that wasn't lost on him. So, it's part of, as a result of being there and working with him for 12 years, it just kind of rubs off,
There's a lovely beetle there. I just went to Claire's talk about beetles, so we should mind him. Yeah. You had a question there in the front. Yeah, go ahead.
Becky, on one of the slides there you said about don't underprice. How do you work out your pricing?
Good question, yeah.
Are the benchmarks using that? And also you said about beware the hobbyist grower.
Well, I mean, that's just my personal pet peeve. There's nothing worse for me where, I feel like I've grown all these like beans or something, and then someone who I supply to turns around and is like, oh, well, mummy grew loads of beans this year. I'm like, no, yeah, I just mean that. I think this is where it goes back to sitting down with the chef and having that growing calendar, so you don't end up being, you've spent all your days like growing one particular thing, and then actually the neighbor next door has a glut of tomatoes, and then you don't sell your tomatoes. It's that communication, it's that relationship. It's so important. And I think sometimes as a grower, you're so busy. The last thing you want to do is like, get the chef over to the farm or really sit down and communicate these things. But that's what I've learned. It's so important to communicate. It's so important to be on the same page and be like, right, I am growing these, ideally I'm really hoping you're going to take them so that, they understand that, because otherwise how do they know? And and that also is setting the value of it. In terms of like, what do you price vegetable as? I mean, this is how we do it. We're friends with McNally Family Farm. They're organic veg grower in the north. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, we do have a lot of their old machinery.
They're a big farm, aren't they?
They're a very, very large farm.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for a long time, but they've helped us a lot. They've given us a lot of their old machinery and basically have been our mentors the whole way through. So we know how much they price, so we just copy it. So if you want the prices, I can send them to you, because I can't think of any other way to do it. And I know that they're organic, they're high value, so just copy them. Yeah. But it's a difficult one with growing, because it takes up all your time. It's like a 7-day-a-week job. I mean, it's probably not the most profitable thing if you were like, okay, this is how many hours I've worked and this is how much I'm selling a cabbage for. Yeah. But I mean, that's a whole different story.
There's another thing on that theme. I remember Darina Allen said at an interview I did with her years ago, she said, I have all these people that come and they go, well, I'm pricing my jam at €3 or $3.50 or whatever. And the lady says, that makes enough profit out of what I bought the fruit for from, raspberries from a neighbour or whatever, or I grew myself. But she said an awful lot of people don't price in their own labour. And it's a really typical thing in farming. I don't know any farmer that actually, if you priced your labour, even of a minimum wage, like you'd be probably in a deficit across the year. Because everyone goes and sells animals and they go, well, that's the check for these animals. But that goes back into something else that, the new weanings you're going to buy or the new whatever. So actually, if you priced your time, if you're a small food producer, it'd be astronomical probably what you'd have to sell your food at. So you're selling it, not pricing your labour a lot of the time, I would imagine.
Yeah, and honestly, like, it's true. I mean, it's sad but true. Like, what are you going to do? I mean, it's just, it would start to become impossible. So, yeah. You know, like that, you wouldn't be able to flog it.
Okay, next question. There was a few more down there, was there? No, is that it? Old lady here. It was.
I just wondered if either of you had any advice as a first step in your respective industries. So Becky, if you had said, if someone had a traditional farm and they said, I'd love to start the sustainable path, what would be the first step? And Chris, same to you in hospitality.
So from a just be more sustainable, or as a grower?
Doing like a regenerative farm, sort of growing.
Yeah, so if you had a traditional farm and you're thinking, like, I'd love to explore this, but where would I start? It's a big topic.
From the growing side, I would say if I could go back in time, the first thing I would do is I would go find a chef that would take the vegetables before I even grew them and sit down and talk to them.
Okay. Good.
And go straight for that more professional, like, you know, no messing about, not having like 8 practice years, but rather like get that profit in the bank. And I think, you've got to have your eye on the money as a farmer. I mean, because, you know, it is difficult. And like I say, profit margin is low.
So it's
So
almost like looking at
projecting.
selling it before you even grow it.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Because that's going to give you an idea of, you know, what is the chef looking for. Quite often, a lot of places just want salad, you know, and salad is actually quite profitable. So that's one way of going about it. You've got to know your land. You've got to know what's going to grow well in it as well. So that's another way I would go. So a mixture of the two, like what's going to grow well. What do people actually want? Because you can try guessing, but so often you just get it wrong. Like I've been there thinking, okay, this is what it's all about. But unless you have the conversations, you actually don't know. So lots of research. I would definitely, lots of research, lots of conversations, and build up relationships straight off the bat. Also, like we mentioned earlier on, get on social media. I mean, it's a cliche, but that's where everyone's at. And even for a chef, you know, there is value in you. If you've built up an audience, you've got those customers already, you've shared your story, this is value. It's not about the followers. It's not about being an influencer. It's purely just like share your story, you're taggable. These are all really good things. So that's what I would start.
Chris, first step.
Yeah, first steps. From a restaurant point of view, is know your area, who your customer base is going to be. We did a lot of research in not just the Moray area, but when we moved back, we had no idea where we were going to be. I looked at over 100 sites all over Ireland. Yeah, the big thing for me was I wasn't interested in being a lease. We were interested in being a freehold. We wanted to be part of a community, so that was really important for Divine and myself. So when we found the site, then we did a lot of homework before we even opened. We did a lot of homework around that area, found out what the kind of demographic was, what the kind of looking at the kind of food scene that where we were at, that we're not trying to replicate anything else. We just have to follow this journey that we want to do, and hopefully people will buy into it. So yeah, it was just a case of there was no plan B, it was only plan A. And it's just about being absolutely, completely, total conviction that you believe in what. But if you believe in what that is the right thing to do, absolutely do it. Ignorance is bliss sometimes. Like, don't overthink it. Just if you believe in it, run with it, because your gut 90% of the time is right.
I actually love that. Yeah, because that's a lot of how we've got going. Is that almost ignorance is bliss? Like nothing was going to stop us on our path to what we were going to do, and just. Sometimes the blinkers are on. You want something, go for it. But also try and think about profit.
Yeah. Like, definitely do your homework. Definitely do your homework on if you're going to. From my point of view, from a restaurant point of view, is really get a sense of where you're at, get a feel of what the customer. We did a couple of fairs even before we opened, so that in the local community, Moira Food Festival and stuff like that. We did that even before we opened, so we could get a sense and talk to people and talk to the local people and what they were looking for out of a local restaurant. What was their perception of what a restaurant is, and thankfully. It was down the path that we were going. We didn't want to be precious about it. We just wanted to be a local restaurant that felt that people we were the kind of place that they could come to on a regular basis. We made sure that we had an open kitchen, so it creates that informal approach to it. So you can see the kitchen, you can see everything that's happening there. That was that was another box that needed to be ticked for me, was that we had an open kitchen, so people felt that the kitchen was approachable and we were accessible. But yeah, just follow your gut, I think, and then just take as much advice from everybody around you in the industry, people that you trust. Just take as much advice as you can from them, because those people really care, and if and they'll help you. And there's a lot of help out there. There really is. People really want to see you do well.
Okay, I'm going to bring this to a close. We've gone over time, but such an amazing panelists. We could talk all day to them. There's so many insights. If you're a grower, if you're a buyer of food, and a chef, and a restaurant owner, my God, like the two of you really know your stuff. You know your onions, and you've seen everything go wrong and go right, and you've come out the end with very successful businesses. So please give them a round of applause, and thank you, Chris, and thank you, Becky.